You like to think you know who you are. You believe violence is something other people do. But the truth is far stranger and far closer to home than you'd like. Picture an ordinary Tuesday, an office worker, a quiet neighbor, someone who has never raised a fist in their life. Now picture that same person, given the right conditions, doing something unthinkable. This isn't fiction. It happened again and again inside a psychology lab in the 1960s. In 1961, a Yale psychologist named Stanley Milgram wanted to understand obedience. He told participants they were helping with a memory experiment. Each time a learner answered wrong, the participant had to deliver an electric shock. The shocks weren't real, but the participants didn't know that. A voice on the other side of the wall screamed in pain. And still, most of them kept pressing the button. Why? Because a man in a lab coat told them to continue. Milgram found something uncomfortable. Roughly 2 out of every 3 participants delivered what they believed was a lethal shock. Not because they were monsters, because they were ordinary. Obedience to authority, it turns out, can override a person's own conscience with startling ease. 10 years later, another psychologist pushed the question further. Philip Zimbardo built a fake prison in the basement of a Stanford building. He assigned ordinary college students to be guards or prisoners. Nothing separated them except a coin flip and a uniform. Within days, the guards had grown cruel. Some prisoners had psychological breakdowns. The experiment, planned to run 2 weeks, was shut down after 6 days. Zimbardo didn't find evil people. He found evil situations. One so powerful, they reshaped identity in a matter of hours. But why would the human mind bend this easily? Here's where it gets stranger. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham studied this question across species and across history. He found that humans carry 2 very different kinds of aggression inside them. Reactive aggression is the hot kind, the sudden explosion when you're cornered or threatened. Proactive aggression is cold, calculated, planned. Wrangham argued that humans evolved to suppress the hot kind through thousands of years of social punishment. Groups that tolerated impulsive violence didn't survive. They killed each other off. But proactive aggression, the cold and coordinated kind, was never selected against in the same way. In fact, it was often rewarded. Coalitions that could organize violence against outsiders or eliminate threats within the group through quiet consensus gained power. Wrangham called this the paradox of human nature. You are, biologically, one of the least reactively violent animals on Earth, and also one of the most capable of premeditated cruelty. That paradox explains something that should trouble you. It explains why genocides are rarely carried out by wild-eyed lunatics. They're carried out by bureaucrats, clerks, soldiers following orders, people who go home afterward and eat dinner with their families. Sociologist Randall Collins spent decades studying real footage of violent confrontations, from bar fights to riots to combat. He found that most violence isn't driven by rage at all. It's driven by tension and fear, and it only happens when a person finds a shortcut past that fear. A crowd, a command, a sense of moral distance from the victim. Remove any one of those, and most violence simply doesn't happen. Collins called this confrontational tension. Watch any real fight footage closely, he noticed, and you'll see it. Most people freeze. Most swings miss their mark entirely. Sustained, effective violence turns out to be rare and difficult, not easy or natural. It requires very specific conditions to override the body's built-in resistance. That single finding quietly upends the myth of the naturally violent human. You are, underneath it all, built to hesitate. This is the counterintuitive twist. You have likely spent your whole life believing that violent people are fundamentally different from you. Broken in some way you are not, but the research says otherwise. The capacity was never rare. What's rare is the situation that unlocks it. Think about how modern life quietly recreates these same conditions. An angry comment section where the target is a username instead of a face. A workplace hierarchy where you follow a decision you privately disagree with because someone above you gave the order. A group chat, where everyone escalates together because no one wants to be the one who steps back first. None of these are electric shocks or prison basements, but the mechanism is identical. Authority, distance, diffusion of responsibility. The same three ingredients that turned Milgram's participants into someone they didn't recognize. Consider how often you've watched a group make a decision you privately disagreed with. Nobody objected, not because everyone secretly agreed. Often, each person assumed everyone else must be fine with it, so they stayed quiet too. Psychologists call this pluralistic ignorance, and it's one more piece of the same machinery. A room full of hesitant people can still produce a unanimous, terrible outcome, simply because nobody wanted to be the first to break the silence. You are not immune to this. No one is. That isn't a reason for despair. It's the beginning of protection, because once you can name the mechanism, authority, distance, diffusion, you can catch yourself the moment one of them appears. You can be the person who asks the uncomfortable question before the crowd moves. You can be the one voice that breaks the chain. Ordinary people turned into perpetrators, not because their nature failed them, but because their circumstances asked something of them, and they didn't recognize the ask in time. You like to think you know who you are. Now you know the deeper truth. Who you are was never fixed. It was always waiting to be shaped by the room you happen to be standing in.